The way I currently understand the game is this. Many of us believe we're here to heal. We spend years trying to repair ourselves, release old wounds, and become the person we think we're supposed to be. But what if healing isn't really the point? What if the thing we're trying to heal is an identity we've been carrying rather than who we truly are? We only ever experience life in this moment. Yet so much of our attention is spent referring back to a story about who we've been. I've always been shy. I had a difficult childhood. My relationships never work. I'm the kind of person who, those stories can feel incredibly real. But every story is an interpretation. It's our present understanding of the past, and interpretations can change. Something extraordinary happened to me that made me question just how fixed our personal history really is. I was reading a book called The Prayer of Freedom, which invited me to write down the names of people I wanted to forgive, and any people I hoped would forgive me. I couldn't think of anyone on the topic of forgiveness. Still, I decided to trust the process and wrote down several names from family and people I have known. This was before becoming distracted and never completing the exercise. 4 months later, I noticed the list sticking out from inside a book on my coffee table. I unfolded it with the intention of completing the forgiveness exercise. The first 2 names on the list were George and Seamus. I stared at the page. I'm 63 years old. I've lived in 6 countries, worked for around 40 companies. I've never known a George. I've never known a Seamus. Then I looked further down the list only to find the name, Cousin John. I don't have a Cousin John. I sat there in complete disbelief. Whether that experience was a mistake, a mystery, or something I still can't explain isn't actually the important part. What struck me was this. How certain am I about the story I tell myself about my own life? How could I list 3 people out of a list of only 12 that I'm absolutely convinced I have never known? How much of what I call my past is actually the meaning I've given to it today? Because every time we remember something, we're not replaying the past, we're interpreting it again in the present, and the interpretation becomes part of who we believe we are. That's why identity can feel so solid. We keep telling the same story, and then living as though it couldn't possibly be any other way. If I define myself by what happened years ago, my decisions today begin to orbit that identity. Perhaps I don't speak up because I've concluded I was never heard. Perhaps I conclude I don't speak up because of my supposed traumatic birth. Perhaps I avoid being visible because I've decided I'm not safe to express myself. Perhaps I believe I need years of healing before I can finally become who I want to be. But what if I've been protecting a story rather than discovering myself? What if, instead of asking, what do I still need to heal, I asked, who am I choosing to be now? What if a fear I'm feeling is not the expectation of something going wrong, but in fact a mechanism to ask me to simply perceive a different story, and nothing more? That question changes everything, because our power has never existed in rewriting yesterday. It exists in how we relate to this moment. The past may have shaped us, but it doesn't have to define us. And perhaps healing isn't about repairing a broken person. Perhaps it's about becoming willing to loosen our grip on the identity we've carried for so long, or invent the identity we think we are becoming. Because every moment offers us the opportunity to see ourselves differently. And from a different identity, new decisions become possible, new actions become possible, a new future becomes possible. Not because the past changed, but because our relationship with it did. That's where I believe our freedom begins.